Hello, everyone, and welcome. Yay, I'm so happy. I'm Stephanie from Sonlight. I'm the community manager. I have today with me Judy and Sarita Holtzman. Judy is with me in the marketing department, and you might have seen her if you've ever attended a convention. She is a veteran homeschooler and is out there talking to all kinds of people about homeschooling. Sarita Holtzman is our president and founder. She is the Sonlight guru. She's the person who picks the books. She's the person who started this 30 years ago today, or this month, actually, last month, right? This summer. Congratulations, Sarita, on 30 years, and thank you both for being here. This particular session is the Homeschool Connections Summit by Sonlight opening session. So today we're going to tell you a little bit about everything that needs to happen while you're joining us for the day, as well as tips and tricks and encouragement for you along the way. So first, let's talk a little bit about the day. Every hour on the hour, starting right now, 8 o'clock in the morning, Mountain Time, is a featured session. Featured sessions are a little bit longer, a little bit more focused, maybe on a particular topic. And like I said, 8 to 4 every hour on the hour. Throughout the day, we also have breakout sessions, and those are available right now. So if there's a session that's going on that you're not particularly interested in, go to a breakout session. Watch a few of them. They're between 10 to 30 minutes, I would say, for the most part. Some of the meatier ones get a little bit longer, but they're worth it. If you want to watch about preschool, it's worth the 30 minutes, right, Judy?
Absolutely.
Judy did the preschool session with me. So we have a ton of veteran homeschoolers here with us today. You will find a lot of faces. If you've ever been to a convention, you will see their faces on a convention floor throughout the United States, and they are out there sharing all about Sonlight. We're so happy to bring this first ever online convention to you today, so everyone around the world can join. And here's a pro tip. Even though it's available today to start, if you're missing something, if the kids need you, if someone's bleeding, we just talked about that. If you have an appointment, if you get interrupted at all, everything is available through August 7th. So this website will be available, playbacks will be available. You can watch everything again. If there's something that you missed, if you take notes, anything like that, if you missed it, you can go back and watch it. Speaking of taking notes, we do have a playbook that you can download. The download is available at sonlight.com/online-convention, and it's down there in the second section, and you can see download the playbook to help plan your day, everything that we have available, all the descriptions. There's even a notes section. There's some freebies. There's websites that you might want to visit, or links that we talk about within each of the sessions available. There's speaker bios. There is all kinds of good stuff in that particular piece. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go ahead and do so. The other thing that you might want to download is the Sonlight catalog. If you don't have a catalog, you can go to sonlight.com/catalog and download a catalog. These things explain everything. And some people like to see it on the website. Others like to touch it in their hands. So this would be a great piece to download to get you started. Did I miss anything, Judy?
Don't think so, except that we want you to pick up the phone and text or call your friends, because this is something that would be fun to share. And so you could take notes, even if you can't get together today while you're watching all the workshops. Take a lot of great notes and get together afterwards over a cup of coffee or a pastry or something yummy, delicious, and talk about some of the things that you learned or questions that were raised. So yes, you absolutely want to find somebody to talk about with this.
Yeah, especially if you're a new homeschooler. Connect with a veteran homeschooler and watch it together. And maybe they can tell you, that worked for me, or I tried that didn't work, but maybe it'll work for your kids because I know they're, this way or whatever. These tips and tricks can be shared veteran and new homeschooler alike. So it's great. The other thing that I forgot to mention is we are going to have a live. So while you can comment today on all of the videos that are on this event, Down below the description is a comment box. Please comment. Our advisors are standing by to help answer, as well as Judy and I. Will be there to help answer any questions you might have on the spot. After this, we are going to have a live session over on our Facebook page on July 16th with our advisors. We're kind of calling this a Meet Your Advisor session, and we are going to try to answer all the questions that you might have that didn't get answered. So if you leave a comment and no one can, it's a meaty question, also, that's a great place to invite people to join us. Ask the questions live. We'll answer them right there on the spot. These women, like I said, veteran homeschoolers, sunlighters, they can answer just about any question you might have. Another.
What time is that on the 16th?
Oh, it's noon.
At noon? Okay.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
Noon.
Yep.
I go through things so quickly, I sometimes forget the details. So thank you, Judy. Noon, July 16th on Sonlight's Facebook page. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a connections group. It's a private Facebook group over at, I think you can get there by going to facebook.com/groups/Sonlight Connections, or we have a shortcut on our website, sonlight.com/connections, and there's a link there. We have a private Facebook group. There's a ton of people in there providing advice. It's sort of, our meetup, if you will, now that we can't meet up, and people around the world can't always meet up with others. So it's a great place to go and meet other Sonlighters. We also have in-person groups that are starting there too. So you can find information on the in-person groups at sonlight.com/connections. I think I covered all of the things. Let's talk about some advice. I think it's great. Sarita, I am so happy that you have joined us. I know that you have a unique homeschool story, and it might align with some of the parents who, are joining us today. Could you share your story with us and how you started homeschooling?
I'd be glad to. And Stephanie's right. Back in the day when I was, a lot of people were homeschooling, and some of the moms had decided they were going to do it, and they were planning when their kids were babies. That is not my story. I said to my husband came to me and he said, "Oh, I wonder if we should homeschool our children." We were living in Southern California at the time, and schooling was very expensive. The school system where we lived was very poor. Kids were bused to a very substandard school. So the only option we felt like we had was to put our kids in a local Christian school, but it was very expensive. And he said, "Oh, maybe we should homeschool our kids." He had been to a family that was homeschooling, and the kids were sharp and they were articulate and they asked good questions, and he was very impressed. And I said to him, "You're not putting me in that box. They figured out how to do that. Why in the world would we reinvent the wheel? I don't want to do that. That's not where I live and breathe." But our finances pushed us in a particular way, and I thought, well, you could probably do it for 1 year, because you probably won't ruin your children forever if you don't do it exactly perfectly for that 1 year. And so I took my nerves in my hand and decided I would try it. And I found out that I really loved it. It was one of those where I felt like I had a really great chance to meet my kids, and I get to know them in a really unique and a precious way. And this many years later, I am so grateful God allowed us to do that with our family. It was something that I came in kicking and screaming, but I'm going out saying, even if you don't want to, it could be that this is something that's a great opportunity for your family as well. It's been very, very good for our family.
Yes, I love that story. I think so many people can probably relate to that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you find out that you absolutely love it.
I love it. Mm-hmm. It's good.
So why did you start Sonlight? Can we talk a little bit about that, and maybe like how literature-based works? Like, wow, together.
Let's start with Sonlight. Why I started the company was back in the day. This is of course 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you could get. There were just a couple of companies that said, "We supply curriculum for schools, and we'll also let homeschoolers use it." It was one of those where I thought I had used a textbook education, and I thought, I don't necessarily want that for my children. While they're solid and while they can be full of good information, it can be dry and dull. So what I decided to do instead was to pick what I felt was the best of the best and use it with my own kids. And after a year, I kind of went, wow, we're just having so much fun. A neighbor who lived in my backyard, who was a missionary, who was home from the field, came and she said to me, Sarita, you know, what we really need to do is pick the best of the best and put it in a box and send it to friends of mine who live overseas. Because if you think it's hard to pick materials here, it's 10 times as hard overseas. You can read about something in a catalog and you think, oh, that looks like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then you order it. It takes 6 months to get there and then it doesn't work at all. So if we could figure out what are the best materials, put them in a box and send them to friends of ours, that would be a great thing. And I thought, well, I'm a pretty organized person. I could probably do that in the afternoons while my children nap. It was one of those where we were in a missions community at the time. And one of the things we had been told was the first main reason people came home from the field was they couldn't get along with one another. I thought, I can't do anything about that. But the second reason they came home was they didn't know what to do with their kids' education. I thought, I could solve that. If I could keep a missionary on the field for one more year, boy, that would be a great thing to do. So I thought, well, let me try that. And that's really how Sonlight started. It was one of those where I got together with my backyard neighbor. We talked things through and worked things out. And she wrote the original schedules. And she told her friends. And that's really where Sonlight started. So basically, what is a literature-based curriculum? Basically, it uses books. Sonlight happens to have a history theme. So we choose a topic of history that we want to study, and we'll pick a couple of great books that will help us with that. Then we plug in readers and read-alouds that tie to that history. So there's all kinds of connections that happen in the brain. It's really, we found it to be a very effective way to learn, partially because the story, of course, pulls you in. It's compelling, and it grips your heart, and it's something that kids can't wait to get to the end of, and they're engaged the whole time while you're listening, while you're reading a story to them. And it makes the history that you're studying come alive because you have protagonists and antagonists that are warring with one another and things are happening in the story. But it's one of those where we found that this is the most effective way. Kids remember the things that they hear in the stories that grip their hearts. Judy, you want to add anything to that?
I think the other thing that's always impressed me about learning with books is that it gives context to what you're reading. When you learn from a textbook, you're memorizing dates from here and names from here and events from over here, and kids hang on to them just long enough to spit them back out on a test, and then all that information disappears. At least it did for me. So when you put that information in a story and you give context and emotion that connects the student to the information, they hang on to it for a very long time.
We found that students will get on a standardized test somewhere and they'll have multiple choice questions there, and the kids, because of the way they've been taught, will be able to reason out the answers to things, even if they've never memorized the dates. And of course, we don't recommend that you memorize things anyway, because you can look up anything on your phone, right? So if you have a plan and a big picture overview, and you have stories that have made it all come alive, very, very effective way to learn.
Absolutely. How many people remember their favorite childhood book, right? Read it and reread it. Well, think about if those books taught you great things about history. So true. Let's talk a little bit about the Sonlight Instructor's Guide. Judy, I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think it's important that people understand putting together all of the literature in a schedule really does help it work out. So I have a schedule. I have one here that I'm going to show while Judy talks a little bit about the Sonlight Instructor's Guide.
Sure. All those books, I mean, if you're a book lover like I am, all those books, that's amazing. The problem comes when Monday morning of the first day of school rolls around and you think, well, now what do I do? You know, I've got all these books and which one am I supposed to read and how much am I supposed to read? And that's where Sonlight's Instructor's Guides come in. So we've taken all of that literature and we've categorized it by subject, and then we've scheduled it by day. So each day of the week, each title that you're reading, you know exactly how much you're supposed to read, what you're supposed to accomplish in that day. And in addition to that, those instructor's guides have discussion and comprehension questions. and map assignments and timeline assignments, just all of the resources that you need to be able to be sure that your children have not only heard what you read, but understood and are taking away. And so we're hooking information in a lot of different ways, because we know that if we take one piece of information and teach it in multiple different ways, the kids hang on to it. And so that's what that instructor's guide does. It also gives you a very easy way to keep track of how much school you've done. If you live in a state where you have to report regularly how much school your children have done, that schedule portion of the instructor's guide, each time you complete an assignment, you check it off or you pencil a date in there, and you have a concrete, solid demonstration of all the work that your children have accomplished during that school year.
Mm-hmm.
And some people use this is super flexible. It's made to be flexible. Like Judy said, some people go through the day, each day. Some people will block schedules, so they'll do science or maybe even language arts or something on a certain day. So they'll pull things out and they'll work sort of across this way. If you get into a really good book and your children keep saying, Mom, don't stop reading, just keep reading, and mark that off as you go and come back to something else the next day. So it is super flexible.
Yes, it is what holds Sonlight together.
For sure, for sure. Let's talk about the literature-based education approach and how it really does make learning more enjoyable. We touched on this a little bit, but Sarita, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think, as you mentioned earlier, when you have a great book, it both grips your heart, it can teach you great vocabulary, can teach you empathy, things that you would never, ever, ever glean from a textbook. It's a way of, we call it painless learning, right? It's just a way of learning things in a way that are approachable. And I mean, I can remember going to a convention way back in the day, and one of the speakers said, oh, my husband worked in the next room and he worked as the principal, and he would come in and take care of discipline problems as they arose. And I thought, I actually can't even relate to that, because it's one of those where as you sit and read stories with your children, you have a chance to both interact with them and you get to talk with them about deeper levels, because stories bring up things in very natural ways. We can talk through issues, we can talk through things that are important. Important topics can come up through a book, and you can handle things in a way that kind of takes it out of you, but still impacts your heart and the hearts of your children. Judy, you have more to add?
That last part was especially meaningful to me when I was homeschooling my children with Sonlight. Those relationships, those bonds that we developed over time that we really didn't even realize were happening, just because we were reading together and we were having conversations about fun things, but also about very difficult topics that come up when you read a well-written book. So yeah, I think not only are students getting a superior academic education with literature-based learning, but even more than that, you're developing relationships within your family that last a lifetime.
How many of us can say, boy, I liked my kids beforehand, but wow, I love my kids now. Yes. You know, I know how smart they are, and I've had this chance to really invest in them, and oh my goodness, it just does all kinds of great things for our families, doesn't it?
Yes.
I wanted to say the instructor's guide does have some discussion topics. So Judy mentioned this, but you go off of these topics once you start reading these books. These are just conversation starters, but things come up throughout the entire book that really are meaningful.
Yeah.
So let's get down to the goods. We have probably new homeschoolers joining us today. We also have veteran homeschoolers today. Let's talk a little bit about the advice that you might have for both of those groups of people, and any tips or anything that you can provide them that might help them on their journey. Judy, do you want to start?
Sure. I think there's three things that I try always to remember to share with new homeschoolers and with homeschooling moms who we often meet on the convention floor who come back and say, boy, has this been a year. And I'm not sure I can do this again for another year. And I say to them, I think number one, it's very helpful if you decide what your goals are before you start. My husband and I used to each summer find a way to block out some time. Maybe we'd go for a walk together, or maybe we'd get dinner together or whatever. And we would talk about the challenges that each of our kids had in the previous school year and the victories that we celebrated with them. And then we would turn around and look ahead and say, okay, we're going to choose 3 spiritual goals for each one of our kids and 3 academic goals. And I would write those down on an index card, nothing fancy, and stick them on my refrigerator. And it was there for those days when I couldn't remember why I was homeschooling my children, especially in January, right after the holidays, when everybody's coming down off that sugar holiday high. And in upstate New York, where I homeschooled, there's 6 feet of snow on the ground, and you really don't enjoy going outside. Why is it I'm doing this homeschooling thing? And those goals were easy to see and easy to find, and it was a good reminder. And it also helped as my kids got older to set expectations for them. So they knew what our goals were, what our focus was going to be for the coming year. And so there were no surprises. I think the other thing that was very, very helpful for us was that we constantly fostered what we called a team mentality. This was not a teacher-student or a mom and dad kid mentality most of the time. Homeschooling became part of our life. We didn't just educate our children from 9 to noon or 8 to 4 or whatever. It became what someone once said to me was a lifestyle of learning. And so the only way that that was going to work was if we all worked on it together. And so, yep, my kids learned how to do laundry, and they learned how to cook meals, and they learned how to make beds and all of those things, which we all did, because if we all shared that part of our daily life, then we also all got to enjoy the fun things, the field trips and the vacations and the, hey, it's 7 o'clock at night and it's still 80 degrees, let's go get an ice cream cone kind of things. So that team mentality also did away with the, well, I made my bed and did the dishes, what did he do today kind of attitude. And so even if it did come up, we would just pull the kids back and say, hey, we're a team here. It doesn't matter what he did, what part have you done to help the team today? And then I think the last piece of advice would be to keep in mind that no mom, no dad, no homeschool is an island unto itself. You need community. You need encouragement. So if you're just starting and you're brand new to this, find a veteran homeschooler who's that much further down the path on their homeschooling journey than you are, and pick their brains. Because I'm here to tell you, 99% of homeschoolers love to share their experience and what works for them, and that's just who we are. And so take advantage of that. And if you've been homeschooling a very long time and you're getting tired and you're discouraged, then that community is helpful in helping to restore and refresh and remind you of why you're homeschooling. And you know, you might be able to find a homeschool co-op, hook up with your state homeschool organization. Hopefully next year you can attend a convention again where you can get encouraged, or as you've already mentioned, Stephanie, join Sonlight Connections. There's a lot of great conversation, questions being answered, and encouraging things being shared on that Facebook group. You want to be there.
That's good. That's good.
That's all great. Sarita.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Judy's saying. I think the idea of the lifestyle learning, that was a huge shift for me when I started homeschooling my kids. It was, before that it was kind of like, well, the schools are handling it. They're doing it all. But then it became, well, what can we learn from this? You know, so you do the ranger talks, or I can remember we took a vacation one year to the hot springs. Well, we got books out on geothermal energy. I mean, I've never have done that before homeschooling. So it's a super great opportunity to take things and move in new directions and learn things all of your life. And honestly, that's a super great thing to learn for your family and to model and to say those kinds of things. So one of the things we want to do is teach our children how to learn. And that's kind of tied to this, you know, where they have something that interests them. Then you say, well, let's look up more things on that. There's, you know, let's look it up on a map. Let's look it up. Let's go to the library and get additional books on this. And this is of interest to you. Why wouldn't we teach our children and help them to understand that they can learn all of their lives? It's super, super important to say, we have an opportunity always to be learning and growing. And it's just one of those great things that we have a great opportunity. I think we can also lean on resources, I think, for our moms right now that are trying to homeschool their kids totally in on their own. That's harder. Like Judy had mentioned, get on these community groups, get on people with moms that are there. Get somebody who can help you with things that are out there and that you need to have done. I think one of the things that happened in our family is you can learn together. While I was really, really good at algebra when I was in school, it was easy for me. I totally understood it. I had a harder time with geometry. So when my son got to geometry in high school, I thought, uh-oh. So what we chose to do was go through his geometry book together. And by gum, if we didn't come up with strategies and figure out how to do things more effectively, but in that, we were modeling even how to learn and how to grow together. And at the end of it, I can honestly say we both got better at geometry. But you do it together, and it's a way to say, you know, maybe I don't know how to do this, but let's figure it out together. And that's all of life, right? When you come up with a situation, you want to be able to say, I don't quite know how to do that, but let's work it out together. Super great tool that we can have with our children. We can grow and learn together. It's a great thing to do. We can share the load. If you if you don't want to teach writing, creative writing, which probably a lot of us have struggles with, maybe you find someone who's good at that within the homeschool community and say, can we trade off jobs? Can you teach my child how to sew and I'll teach your child how to make soap, or whatever thing you might have that's out there. Homeschoolers are great at sharing their pooling and their information, and all of us can learn different things from different people. So find somebody who's out there and can help you with those kinds of things. Go to the different experts that are out there. Expand into your community. I know when my children were younger, they had, you know, the library had programs that they could connect into, or find junior colleges have programs that you can get into. You can get tutors. I mean, you don't have to do this alone. There's resources that are out there. Just ask. There's going to be somebody who can come alongside and help you with the things that you want to do. And these are great ways to encourage our moms as we try to teach our children. Because Judy's right. Some days, particularly January, is hard. But I think too, a lot of times we think, oh my goodness, I can't teach this because I don't know enough about this. Honestly, the teaching part of it's probably the easiest part of it. The homeschooling, that's the challenging piece of it, is the training and the mentoring, which we have to do anyway, right? Our teachers maybe can say, okay, I help you sit still right now, but to teach our children how to live life, that's the challenging piece. And then finally, recognize that this is the beginning of a journey. My notes say, stay humble. We cannot possibly teach our children everything they need to know by the age of 18. And honestly, school systems can't do it either. But if we can raise up kids that love to read, that love to learn, there are no barriers for them at all. They can do whatever God has called them to do. And we have an opportunity as parents to mentor and to walk alongside and to join with our children and enjoy the journey as we do it. It's an opportunity to impact our world through the lives of our children. May it be that you and your family grow in this time. You know, I pray a blessing on you. May you enjoy this time with your children. May your children rise up and call you blessed. May you enjoy and grow together and love learning together. And may this be the beginning of a lifetime journey of just great fruit in the life of your family. May your children be empowered to do whatever God calls them to do. And may this be your very best year ever. Judy, you have anything to add?
I don't think there's another thing I could say, just a hearty amen.
Amen. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you both so much for that advice. I think it's invaluable. So thank you so much. I want to just say one more time, this is the opening session of Homeschool Connection Summit by Sonlight. You call your friends right now. Call them, text them. It's free. It's a free event. Sonlight.com/online convention. This is going to be a great day. I can't wait for you to watch all the videos. I can't wait to hear what you think. Don't forget to join us on the live to ask us questions, to our advisors, anything that we didn't answer today. And thank you all for being here.